Let's dive into the top 10, John.
Do it.
Let's really focus and just I love how this is a really sort of condensed list, but it's really, really important things. Number one on the list: avoid rich text. We don't want to lock ourselves into that sort of place where we can't reuse our content very well. And the first thing to think about when we're trying to avoid rich text is to take a multi-field approach, where a rich text field could have, a heading, a paragraph. You could have call to actions in there and images. Multiple fields on a content form, something like that would say, hey, we have a different field for my content, for my heading, different field for the description, different field for the call to action. And that way that can be reused in multiple places. And the formatting can be determined later, but the content can live on for a lot.
100%. You can use it in many different ways. If you look at this app on the side, it doesn't work with rich text very well. You could draw this out in rich text, but a lot of apps don't even render rich text properly, right? So you need those individual fields. And actually, let's say down the road, you don't predict how you're going to change your app. You redesign your app and lay this out completely different. If you use rich text and lock in that design, that layout, you can't change it very easily. You have to go back and change the actual content. With a multi-field approach, each individual field can be re-rendered in a different design, in a different layout. That's future-proofing. That's making sure that, if this app changes and maybe you have the title and the category and the price in different areas, you don't have to change anything in terms of your content. You don't have to change your model, actually. You just have to reskin the design.
It's future-proof more with multi-field approach. It's future-proof, more future-proof right out of the gate. And if we give definitive data types that make sense to that data, now the data is a little more self-describing. So for instance, that price, that $268.40, that could be saved in the CMS. A lot of times, like if it's an e-commerce product, we'll save the price in cents. So it'll be 26,840 cents as just an integer. And that way we can reuse that and convert it to other data types, convert it to other currencies really easily. We also have, you can see there's like a slider there for the color. That could be, a lot of different ways to kind of describe a color as well. Just data types are really important. Same with the image. And when we have these things, now we can validate the content to make sure that it is going to, first of all, be correct, just in terms of making any sense at all. But also we can validate that it's going to work with our design and with the rest of the content.
Yeah, so one thing I'll add to this is maybe the business says, we will never, ever show this product without the category or without the price or something like that. It always has to have that. That's part of our organization's brand, is part of our consistency. And if you do rich text, someone can go in there and delete that area out, and there's no way to really validate that. Right? But if you say, price always has to be visible, or the category or something, you can make those required fields. So the content can even be saved or published without those fields filled in. And this works really great when you actually start relating content as well. You can't relate content to rich text very well. So if I wanted to relate sub-products to this product or to different prices, and then validate against those as well, that's much easier to do with separate individual fields versus just rich text.
Now, playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, I mean, I think now that we've talked about this, absolutely, rich text, it locks you into a current design. We want our content to outlast that design. We want it to be able to be used across multiple channels, multiple screens, such as, mobile apps, smart TVs, things like that. So those design systems could be completely different. But also, and the HTML fields that are in rich text is very powerful if you want to use that. And I've actually been in discussions with lots of customers where that is part of their workflow, because they have super users that can create rich text really, really fast and get those out there. And that content's not even meant to last that long. A lot of the times they're just testing stuff out. They're not sure if they want to go and build a whole, bunch of components for their new design system or whatever. They're just kind of cranking things out. I would say that's the one case where rich text does make sense for some.
Yeah, and I think where to look at this, if you look at this example on the screen here, you don't want this whole screen to be rich text, because this is a design system layout. It's part of your design, it's part of your branding. You want that consistent. But that paragraph there that describes it, that little paragraph, just that little part, could be rich text, because maybe you want to drop a URL or a link within that, or have some other thing where you hover over it and something happens. You might want some interactive capabilities within that rich that paragraph. So yes, I agree, Joel. HTML is actually, rich text editors are very, very powerful, very, very dangerous at the same time. And you have to make sure you're building them around your design system or your content architecture properly, so that you're not just giving people a way out from properly following a design system, but you're giving them a tool that's a little bit more powerful when needed.
Great question from Ella. So instead of rich text, are you suggesting markup? I think what John was just suggesting there is that in some places rich text does make sense, but we probably want to validate that we're not using things like tables or script tags or style tags. I personally have started to love the block editor. So like there's a lot of folks that are now starting to use the block editor, which allows you to put differently formatted blocks in there, but you can't do, crazy stuff that is going to break. You can't put a table in there that's going to break your layout, unless that was what it was, a block that was supported. So there's a bunch of different alternatives and options if you need to allow more rich formatting inside of the screen that you're there. So, and I'm not saying rich text can't ever work, but it comes with the caveat, and it makes your design less future-proof.
Great.